Hi everyone, I am Prabhu, Assistant Professor, Department of Information Technology, OB Arts and Science College, Gopichetipalayam. Today we have discussed about OSI reference model with animation. In this animation, we will discuss the Open System Interconnect model. It is a description of how computers or processes can communicate over a network. Here, the sender end sends the messages and the receiver end receives the messages via OSI model. The OSI model is not a currently an implementation, but rather a theoretical model. The TCP/IP model is widely implemented. We will compare these two models at the end. OSI model has 7 separate layers. We will explain each layer using an example: application layer, presentation layer, session layer, transport layer, network layer, data link layer, physical layer. Each layer talks to the corresponding layer at the destination node. This happens because each layer appends the data from each other. These two ends are linked with local area network and wide area network. I will show an example of the OSI protocol stack in use. The red node will send an email to the server. An email is composed by an application layer. The application layer uses SMTP commands to tell the server how to handle the data. Application layer provides the interface to application programs. The composed email transfers to the presentation layer. The presentation layer converts the email text to ASCII format and specifies the format of the image. Then the encrypted email is transferred to the session layer. The session layer adds a header to handle sessions. After that, the session layer transfers an email to the transport layer. After receiving data from session layer, the data is broken into segments that are reassembled by the transport layer. Then the segments are transferred to network layer. The network layer here is using IP. The segments become packets by adding the source and destination IP addresses. Here in data link layer, the packets becomes frames that are created for the specific network. The frames have the physical addresses of the two nodes. The data is traveling between data link layer and physical layer. After that, the frames are transported to physical layer. The physical layer puts the bits on the physical medium like LAN or WAN. Here the router must send the frame over a different network with a different data link protocol. Only the data link layer and physical layer require modification. Once the frames are reached at the router removes the data link information and sends it up to the network layer. The router uses the destination IP address to determine where to send packet next. The router encapsulates the data with the proper data link information for the WAN. Here the frames are travel via wide area network, but the frames are lost because in between the transport layer to transport layer, router was congested. The center's transport layer timed out, waiting for an acknowledgement from the receiver's transport layer. The center's transport layer will retransmit the data. Once again, it retransmits the data from physical layer to physical layer via LAN and WAN. Once at the physical layer, the router removes the data link information and sends the packet up to the network layer. Again, the router uses the IP addresses from the network layer to determine where to send the packet. Once it determines the next hub, it appends the appropriate data link information to send it on the network. Again, frames are destroyed because the sending layer does not receive an acknowledgement from the receiving layer. It resends the frame. Here, each layer of the model now removes a layer of encapsulation and reads the information appended by the same layer on the sender, and reads the bits from the physical medium, converts them into frames, and sends the frame to the data link layer. Data link layer removes the data link headers and converts frames back into IP packets. Then the IP packets sent to the network layer. Network layer removes the IP headers, converts the packets back into segments and passes them back up to the transport layer. The transport layer reassembles the segments back into the original data, uses the port number to determine which application to send the data to. The session layer uses the session information to determine which communication stream this data belongs to. It uses the information provided by the presentation layer to be able to interpret the data for the specific machine. Finally, the email sent to the receiving end. As mentioned earlier, the OSI model is more of a theoretical model. The Internet uses the TCP/IP protocol stack instead of the OSI stack. Thank you for watching this video.